Hello everyone, welcome. Hi, hello Sanabil, how are you dear? Welcome. Hello Sanabil, how are you? Welcome. Walaikum salam Subka ji. I am good, how about you? Welcome Subka ji, how are you? Hello dear Mira, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. Thanks to your Sana. Hello, dear Mira. How are you? Welcome. Comment your beautiful name. It's okay. Thank you so much for joining, dear. Hi. Let's see who's next. Welcome, everyone. Good evening. Hello, dear. Oh, हमारी ना जाए बस सबका जी. Lara. Why not, dear? Here is your cute sister name. Hello, Muskan or Mukan? Mukan. Hi, welcome. Sanabil. Hello, dear Rui. How are you? Ankit. Hi, Ankit. Welcome. Here is your beautiful name. Thank you so much for joining. Sanabil. Am I right? Uh-huh. Hi, Andre. How are you? Welcome, Jisoo. Hi, Jisoo. How are you? Shella. Hello, dear Shella. Welcome. Kajal. Hi, Kajal. How are you? Hi. You're right. Thank you so much. Melody. Hi, dear Melody. How are you? बहुत सबका जी बहुत. I am good. How about you? Welcome, Mimi. Here is yours. Thanks. Hi, Noah. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Don't forget to double tap on your screens. Muhammad. Hello, Muhammad. How are you? Here is your beautiful name. Thank you so much for joining. Welcome. Hi. Amelijia. Here is your good name. Thank you so much for joining, dear Nico. Hi, dear Nico. Welcome, Sophia. Usman. Hi, Usman. Welcome. Hoa. Hoa. Hello. Hi, Colin. How are you? Welcome. Wait for a minute. Okay. Hi, Nissan. Welcome. How are you? Here is your beautiful name, Ziyoda. Hello, Ziyoda. Here is yours. Hi, Kishore. Welcome. How are you? Brian. Hi, Brian. Here is yours. Tamil. Hi, Tamil. How are you? Welcome. Giovanni. Hi, Giovanni. Here is yours. Jahongir. Hi, welcome. Jahangir. How are you? Naya. Hello, dear Naya. Welcome. Natale. Hi, Natale. Here is your good name. Welcome. Vijay. Hi, Vijay. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Alex. Hi, Alex. Welcome. How are you? Let's see who is next. Delia. Hello, dear Delia. Delia. Hi, Khan. Welcome. Here is yours. Was it? Hello, dear. Was it? How are you? Alia. Hi, Alia. Alia. Welcome. With double A. So sorry. Alia. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. Khadija. Hi, Khadija. I don't know why I am making so much mistakes. Hello, dear Khadija. How are you? Binish. Hi, dear Binish. Welcome. Here is your good name. Shelly. Hi, dear Shelly. How are you? Vasek. Hi, Vasek. Welcome. Here is yours. Bittu. Hi, Bittu. Welcome. Let's see who is next. Sophia. Hi, Sophia. Welcome. Bakhtavar. Hi, Bakhtavar. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Here is your good name. Hi, Hazil Bhai. I am good. How about you? Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Double tap on your screens. Yildiz. Hi. How are you? I guys love Sonia. Welcome back. How are you? Awes and Sanya. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Hi, Yvonne. Here is yours. Welcome. Prasil, hello. How are you? Here is your good name. Oh, welcome salam, Khadija ji. How are you? Welcome. Here is yours. Riyanshi. Hi, Riyanshi. Welcome, dear. Asad. Hi, Asad. Here is yours. Sarah. Hello, Sarah. How are you? Thank you so much for joining. And double tap on your screens. Rocks. Hey, Rocks. Very sorry, I don't understand this language. Can you please write in English? Hi, Emily. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Nisvi. Hi, dear Nisvi. Welcome. Imtiaz. Hello, dear Imtiaz. How are you? Here is a good name. Rabia. Hello, dear Rabia. Here is yours. Mickey. Hello, dear Mickey. Here is your good name. Zuri. ¿Cómo estás, dear Zuri? Welcome. Lie. Hello, dear Lie. How are you? Nora. Hi, dear Nora. Welcome. Ashton. Hi, Ashton. How are you? Welcome. Anita. Hello, dear Anita. Here is yours. Helena. Hello, dear Helena. Welcome. Jamshid. Hi. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Guys, double tap on your screens. Satru. Hi, Satru. Welcome. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. Kimberly. Welcome, dear Kimberly. Here is your Zainab. Hi, dear Zainab. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining, dear Joe. Welcome. Susmita. Hi, Susmita. Here is your good name. Thank you so much for joining. Conifer. Hello, dear Conifer. How are you? Sophia. Hello, dear Sophia. Welcome. Let's see who is next. Sarah. Hi, dear Sarah. Welcome. Larissa. Hello, dear Larissa. Here is your good name. Thank you so much for joining, dear Prashant. Welcome. Here is your good name, Satak. Hello, dear Satak. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining, Jory. Hello, dear Jory. Here is your good name, Brooklyn. Hello, dear Brooklyn. How are you? Here is your good name, Sunflower. What's your good name, dear Sunflower? Sidhu. Hi, Sidhu. How are you? Lokesh. Hi, Lokesh. Here is a good name. Thank you so much for joining, dear Access. Hello. Thank you, RP. Dear RP with a sunflower. RP. Welcome. Here is a good name, dear. Thank you so much for joining. Let's see who's next. Angela. Hi, dear Angela. Here is your good name. Let's see who is next. Maria. Hi, dear Maria. Here is your good name. Ivan. Here is your good name. Ivan, thank you so much for joining. Hey, dear Amanda. How are you? Don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. Raja, hello, dear Raja. Miriam, hello, dear Miriam. How are you? Here is your good name. Hello, Jiha. How are you? Welcome. Joel, hi, dear Joel. Here is your good name. Let's see who is next. Gory. Hi, dear Gory. Here is your good name. Welcome, dear Amani. How are you? Here is your good name. Hello, dear Noah. How are you, dear Lipika? Hello, dear Lipika. Here is your good name. Let's see who is next. Dear Bano. Hello, dear Bano. Here is a good name. How are you? Hello, dear Krishna. Here is your good name. Thank you so much for joining, dear Saja. Here is your good name. Let's see, Lalisa. Hi, dear Lalisa. Here is your good name. Thank you so much for joining, guys. Uday. Hello, dear Uday. Here is your good name, Ramsha. Hello, dear Ramsha. Here is your good name, Liliana. Hello, dear Liliana. Here is your good name, Abdullah. Hi, dear Abdullah. How are you? Welcome, Tasfiya. Hello, dear Tasfiya. Here is your good name, Isabella. Hi, dear Isabella. Here is your good name. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hi, dear Dishu. Welcome. Hello, dear Kiara. Here is your good name, dear Dishu. Hi. Here is your good name, Safa. Hello, dear Safa. How are you? Nova. Hello, dear Nova. Here is your good name, Safa is done now. Okay. Here is yours again, dear Shruti. Hi, dear Shruti. Here is your good name. Let's see who is next. Fatima. Hi, dear Fatima. How are you? Why are you so sad? Are you in an angry mood, man? Why? Hi, Ritaj. Welcome. Here is yours, Faizan. Hello, dear Faizan. Here is a good name, Dipansa. Hi, dear Dipansa. Here is your good name. Thank you so much for joining. Uday is in angry mood, man. Hi, welcome. Shruti. Hello, dear Shruti. How are you? Let's see who is next. Maria. Hello, dear Maria. Here is your good name, Nazia. Hi, dear Nazia. Welcome. Nia. Hello, dear Nia. How are you? Here is your good name. Thank you so much for joining, dear Lily. How are you? Here is yours, Amruta. Hi. Here is your good name, Martina. Hello, dear Martina. Here is your good name. Let's see who is next. Rafan. Hello, dear Rafan. Here is your good name, Ritaj. Thank you so much for following, dear Ritaj. Welcome back. Alice. Hello, dear Alice. Here is your good name, Romeo. Hello, dear Romeo. You're most welcome. Zaim. Hi, dear Zaim. How are you? Ajmal. Hello, Ajmal. How are you? Here is your good name. Let's see who is next. Tyler. Hello, dear Tyler. How are you? Thank you so much, Pratik. Hello, dear Pratik. Here is your good name. Let's see who is next. Shrika. Hello, dear Shrika. Here is a good name, Annie. Hi, dear Annie. Welcome. Thank you so much. Let's see who is next. Yasmin. Hello, dear Yasmin. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Corey. Hello, dear Corey. How are you? Chen. Chen. Hello, dear Chen. How are you? Sonia. Hello, dear Sonia. Here is your good name, dear Sonia. Waxy. Hello, dear Waxy. How are you? Salman. Hello, dear Salman. Here is your good name, Amir. Hello, dear Damir. Here is your good name, Dami. Hello, dear Dami. How are you? Here is your good name, Shruti. Thank you so much for subscribing, dear Shruti. Here is your good name, dear. Thank you. Let's see who's next. Vajid. Hello, dear Vajid. Here is your good name, Tahira. Hi, dear Dennis. Hi, Dennis. How are you? Satyam. Hello, dear Satyam. Here is your good name, Mir. Hello, dear Mir. Here is your good name, Cookie. Hi, dear Cookie. Here is your good name. Let's see who is next. Sagar. Hi, dear Sagar. Here is a good name. My name is Bakht. Hi, dear Bakht. What a unique name you have. I really like your beautiful name. Thank you so much for joining, dear Zahra. Here is a good name. Thank you so much, everyone. Oh, who's the penguin? Oh, Sonia is standing. Nargiza, hello, Nargiza. Here is your good name. Double tap on your screens. Don't forget to press the subscribe button. Jenica, hi. Your stream is lagging? Oh god. No, don't do this to me, network. Question is best thing on toast? No. Let me add the question. Adding the question. Flower. What is your favorite flower, guys? Let's see who is next. Hey, dear Rasil. Thank you so much for joining. What? But why, dear? Hello, dear Rose. Here is your good name, Arsha. Hello, dear Arsha. Here is your good name, Arihan. Hello, dear Arihan. How are you? Here is yours, Arsha. Hello, dear Arsha. Here is your good name, Aya. Hello, dear Aya. Here is a good name. Oh no, please don't do this to me, network. Network, please. Gulcoda. Hello, dear good soda. Here is your good name. Thank you so much for joining, Alessandro. Hello, dear Alessandro. Here is your good name. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Daniela. Hello, dear Daniela. Here is your good name. Let's see who's next. Nia. Hi, dear Nia. Here is a good name. Okay, what is your name? Sothu. Thank you so much for subscribing, dear Sanaya. Hello, dear Sanaya. Here is a good name, Alicia. Hi, dear Alicia. Here is a good name, Faizan. Hello, dear Faizan. Here is a good name. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Ankush. Hello, dear Ankush. Here is a good name, Ira. Hello, dear Ira. Salman. Hello, dear Salman. Here is a good name. Let's see who is next. Zocte. Hello, dear Zocte. Here is a good name. I don't know why I am singing the same line. Hi, dear Amit. Welcome. Okay, let's see. Hi, dear Zakia. Here is your good name. Let's see who is next. Thank you so much for subscribing. Hello, dear family. Here is a good name, Jaden. Hello, dear Jaden. Here is your good name, Ayusha. Hello, dear Ayusha. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Ola. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Aryan. Here is a good name. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Tulips. Oh, nice. Graham. Hello, dear Graham. I love rose, tulips, and rose, tulips, and daisies. Hello, dear Windy. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Kale. How are you? Here is a good name. Hi, dear Ashwin. Here is a good name. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Don't forget to press the subscribe button and double tap on your screens. Hello, dear Ernest. Here is a good name. Priya. Hello, dear Priya. Here is a good name. Arva. Hello, dear Arva. Here is a good name. Hello, hi. I don't understand the capital letters, but I can try for you. ILKROS. Here is a good name. Thank you. Kimberly, welcome back. Here Here is your good name, dear Kimberly. Hi, dear Yanni. Here is your good name. Let's see who is next. Nimisha. Hello, dear Nimisha. Here is your good name. Tommy. Tommy or Tanmay? Let me check the spelling first. Tommy. Hello, dear Tommy. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Jake. Hi, how are you? Hello, dear Medina. Here is your good name. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Don't forget to press the subscribe button. Let's see who is our next subscriber. Rose. Hello, dear Rose. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Neha. Here is a good name. Nita. Hello, dear Nita. Here is a good name. Jod and Preet. Jodpreet. Hi. Jodpreet. Here is a good name. Dear Jodpreet. Welcome. Hello, dear Meerab. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Malin. How are you? Here is a good name. Eva. Hi, dear Eva. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Hanny. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Subhan. Here is your good name. Thank you so much for joining. Hello, dear Anisha. Hello, dear Anisha. Here is your good name, Jenny. Hi, dear Blink. How are you? Carolina. Hello, dear Carolina. Here is a good name, Samir. Hello, dear Samir. Here is a good name, Ashika. Hi, dear Ashika. Here is a good name. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Welcome, Moksha. Hello, dear Moksha. Here is a good name, Halima. Hi, dear Halima. Here is a good name, Tessie. Hello, dear Tessie. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Dulcie. How are you? Hello, dear Dulcie. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Amber. Here is a good name. Thank you so much for joining. Maftuna. Hello, dear Maftuna. Here is a good name, Jenica. Hello, dear Jenica. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Shriyansh. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Lily. Here is your good name. Don't forget to double tap on your screen. Double tap on your screen, guys. Hello, dear Farah. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Nisar. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Luna. Here is your good name. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Xavier. Hello, dear Xavier. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Manu. Here is a good name. Sasuke. Hello, dear Sasuke. Here is a good name. Let's see who is next. Malik. Hi, dear Malik. Here is a good name. Kavya. Hi, dear Kavya. Here is a good name. Stravantika. Hello, dear Stravantika. How are you? Stravantika. Here is your good name. Thank you so much for joining. Felix. Hello, dear Felix. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Hasib. Here is your good name. Thank you so much for joining. Don't forget to press the subscribe button. Shresht. Hello, dear Shresht. Sorry, sorry. Shresht. Here is a good name. Thank you. Let's see who is next. Dhruvi. Hi, Dhruvi. Here is a good name. Thank you so much for joining. Hi, dear Geeky. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Nagya. Nagia. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Swamp. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Piku. Here is a good name. Thank you so much for joining, guys. Let's see who is next. Lisa. Dear Blink. Here is yours, Dennis. Hello, dear Dennis. How are you, Sally? Hi, dear Sally. Welcome. Parker. Hello, dear Parker. Here is your good name. Why not, dear? What's your name? Hello, dear Alicia. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Maria. Here is your good name. Thank you so much. Hilja. Hilja. Hi, dear Hilja. What are your nickname you have? Welcome. It is a good name. Thank you so much, dear, for love and support. Hey, dear Chaka, how are you? Kirtina. Kirtana. Hi, dear Kirtana. Here is your good name. Thank you so much for joining. Let's see who is next. Louisan. Hello, dear Louisan. Sophia. Hi, dear Sophia. Here is your good name. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Joshua. Here is your good name. Yasin. Hi, dear Yasin. Here is your good name. Let's see. Hera. Hi, dear Hera. Here is your good name. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. Gary. Here is your good name. Double tap on your screen, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Dear Maya. Hello, dear Maya. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Palak. Here is a good name. Welcome back, Amul Bhai. How are you? Here is your great name. Hello, dear Hannah. Here is your good name. Hello, Ali. How are you? Here is your good name. Let's see who is next. Danny. Hi, dear Danny. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Iman. Here is a good name. Dilman. Dilman or Dilna? Dilna is done. Anabia. Hi, dear Anabia. It is a good name. Hi, dear Noor. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Fatima. Here is a good name. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Don't forget to press the subscribe button. Let's see who is next. Bhavya. Hi, Bhavya. Here is a good name. Thank you so much for joining. Let's see. Hello, dear Amir. Here is a good name. Baron. Baron. Hi, Baron. How are you? Here is a good name. Mehzala. Hi, dear Mehzala. Here is a good name. Ayans. Hello, dear Ayans. Here is a good name. Thank you so much for liking. Brittany. Hi, dear Brittany. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Malika. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Noor. Here is a good name. Thank you so much for joining. Don't forget to press the subscribe button. Double tap on your screen, guys. Come on, 5 more. Luna. Hello, dear Luna. It is a good name, dear Luna. Don't forget to press the subscribe button. Jamila. Hello, dear Jamila. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Safa. Here is a good name. Thank you so much for joining. Hello, dear Minerva. Hi. What a unique name you have. It is a beautiful name, dear. Thank you. Most welcome. Lots of love. Hi, dear Jasim. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Luis. Welcome. Hello, dear Avneet. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Mike. Here is a good name. Don't forget to like and press the subscribe button. Hi, dear Taru. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Dua. Here is a good name. Thank you so much for joining. Hi, dear Chen. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Avneet. Avneet, here is a good name. Hello, dear Pikun. Hi, here is a good name. Hanshika. Hello, dear Hanshika. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Junaid. Welcome. Here is a good name. Thank you so much for joining. Charlene. Hello, dear Charlene. Here is a good name. Don't forget to press the subscribe button, guys. Let's see who is Zealand. Hello, dear Zealand. Here is a good name. Let's see who's next. Nita. Hi, Nita. Hello, Sunday. Bye. How are you? After so many time, welcome back. How are you doing today? I am good. How about you? Thank you so much for joining, Sunday. Bye. Let's see who's next. Hassan. Hi, Hassan. Bhai. How are you? Welcome. Minas. Hi, dear Minas. Welcome. Meet. Hi, dear Meet. Here is a good name. Jannat. Hi, dear Jannat. Here is your good name. Let's see who is next. Charvi. Hi, dear Charvi. Here is your good name. Anya. Hi, dear Anya. Welcome, Mehreen. How are you? Here is your good name. Rose. Hi, dear Rose. Here is a good name. Yuan. Hi, dear Yuan. Welcome. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Ayub. Welcome. Hi, Sanjay. Welcome back. How are you? Here is your beautiful name. Thank you so much for joining. Hi, dear Jude. Welcome, Jude. Oh, hi, dear Jude. Thank you so much for joining. And thank you for your patience, dear. Here is a good name, Hania. Hello, dear Hania. Here is a good name, Bella. Hi, Bella. Here is a good name. Hi, Avantika. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining again. Here is your good name, dear Ankita. Bivan. Hi, Bivan. Welcome. Here is your good name, Veena. Hi, dear Veena. Here is your good name, Rahman. Hello, dear Rahman. How are you? Thank you so much for joining. No, don't spam, please. Soda. Hello, dear Soda. Here is your good name, Ruhi. Don't be angry, dear Ruhi. Here is yours. Nita. Hi, dear Nita. Here is your good name, Megan. Hello, dear Megan. Here is your good name, Nile. Hi, dear Nile. Here is your good name, Alexia. Hi, dear Alexia. Yes. Hi, Dina. Welcome. Sandeeba, you are absolutely right. Hi, dear Dina. Welcome. Let's see who is next. Don't spam, guys, please. Don't spam. Charlize. Hi, Charlize. You have such a unique name. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Hey, that. Hello, dear. Hey, that. Here is your great name. Polly. Hi, dear Polly. Here is a good name. Hi, let's see who is next. Banu. Hi, Banu. Welcome back. Welcome, dear Banu. Just give me 1 minute. Doctor advised me to drink water. And stay hydrated, everyone. Mm-mm-mm-mm. Thank you so much for your patience. Hi, dear Rina. Welcome. Hello, dear Rina. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Zayan. Here is your good name. Guys, double tap on your screens. And don't forget to press the subscribe button. Adila. Hi, dear Adila. Here is your good name. Amira. Hi, dear Amira. Here is a good name. Rimas. Hi, dear Rimas. Here is yours. Hello, dear. Oh. Dua. Hi, dear Dua. Here is a good name. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Advika. Hi, dear Advika. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Malek. Here is a good name. Oh, what's your name? Monica. Hi, dear Monica. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Virat. Here is a good name. Don't forget to double tap on your screen, guys. Zeba. Hello, dear Zeba. Here is a good name. Diana. Hi, dear Diana. That's a beautiful name, dear. Alice. Hi, dear Alice. Here is a good name. Hi, Nathan. How are you? Here is a good name. TVK. Hi, welcome. Anika. Hello, dear Anika. Here is a beautiful name. Thank you so much for joining here. Sophie. Okay. Sophie. Hi, Sophie. Welcome. Rahim. Hello, dear Rahim. Here is a good name. Thank you so much for joining, guys. Double tap on your screens to like this live. And don't forget to press the subscribe button there, right there. Let's see who is next. Afreen. Hi, dear Afreen. Here is a good name. Thank you. Hi, dear Aisha. Here is a good name, dear. Let's see who is next. Rahi. Hi, dear Rahi. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Maliha. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Niku. Here is a good name. So, let's see who is next. Hushi. Hi, dear Hushi. Here is a good name. Sai and Ram. Hello, dear. Here is a good name. RIN. Hello, dear Rin. Here is a good name. Husna. Hi, dear Husna. Here is a good name. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Nolan. Hi. Here is a good name, dear Nolan. Let's see who's next. Habiba. Hi, dear Habiba. How are you? Here is a beautiful name. Afrin. Hi, dear Afrin. Here is your good name. Let me check the comment. Okay. RUPONTI. Why not Sandeep? Bhai? Hey, dear Emma. Welcome. Sovin. Hi, dear Sovin. Here is a good name. Lizzie. Hi, dear Lizzie. Here is a good name. Nihar. Hi, Nihar. Welcome. Here is yours. Double tap on your screens. Double tap. Rina. I know, dear Rina. Here is your good name. Thank you so much for joining everyone. Double tap on your screens to like this live and don't forget to press the subscribe button. Mire. Hi, dear Mire. How are you? Hello, dear Fatima. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Rahi. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Usman. Hi, here is a good name. Hello, dear Luca. Hi, dear Luca. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Divine. Here is a good name. Nuri Khan. Hello, dear Nuri Khan. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Rebecca. Here is a good name. Thank you so much for joining, dear Rebecca. Hello, dear Hanan. Thank you so much for joining. Don't forget to double tap on your screen. Sujay. Hi. What are your nickname? You have SUJ. Let me check the spelling. SUJ and then Sumaya. Oh, SUMEYY. Here is yours. Thank you so much. Sufian. Hello, dear Sufian. Here is your good name, Safia. Thank you so much for subscribing, dear Safia. Hi, dear Ariba. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Preet. Here is your good name, Callie. Hi, dear Callie. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Mintu. It is a good name. Hi, dear Alex. Here is a good name, Zainab. Hi, dear Zainab. Here is a good name. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hi, dear Era. Here is your good name. Don't forget to press the subscribe button. Asma. Hi, dear Asma. Here is your good name, Christian. Here is your good name. Thank you so much for joining. Let's see, Ali. Hi, dear Ali. Here is your good name. Thank you so much for joining, dear Zoe. Here is your good name, Mimi. Here is your good name, Arzati. Here is yours, Maya. Hello, dear Maya. Here is your good name. Let's see who is next. Hamna. Hi, dear Hamna. Here is your good name. Samia. Hi, dear Samia. Here is your good name. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Manya. Hi, dear Manya. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Anis. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Sriyas. Sriyas, and what was the second name? Sriyas and Viyash. Sriyas and Viyash. Sriyash. Uh-oh. Sriyash and Yash. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Behlil. Behlil? Yes. Hello, dear Behlil. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Shahzad. Here is your good name. Let's see who is next. Hey, dear Abby. Welcome. Here is your good name, dear Abby. Double tap on your screens. Maisha. Hi, dear Maisha. How are you? Arya. Hello, dear Arya. Anu. Hi, dear Anu. Welcome, Jasmine. Hi, dear Jasmine. You're most welcome, Shazan. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Divya. Hi, dear Divya. Here is your good name. Asfia. Asfia? Asfia? Asfia or Asia? Asfia or Asia? Where is your comment? Asfia or Asia? Oh God. Asfia or Asia, dear? Asfia? Did you skip? Okay, let's see. Hey, dear Asma. Welcome. Hi, dear Rinky. Here is your good name. Javeria. Hi, dear Javeria. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Evelyn. Here is a good name. Pablo. Hi, dear Pablo. Here is a good name. Parush. Hi, dear Parush. Here is your good name. Hello, Abbas. Here is a good name. How are you? Hi, dear Haley. Here is a good name. Don't forget to like and subscribe, dear Manu. Hi, dear Manu. Here is a good name. Let's see who is next. Thank you so much for subscribing, dear cute, lovely peoples. Let's see who is next. Tala. Hi, dear Tala. Here is a good name. Let me fix that. Okay. Let's see who is next. Nihar. Hi, Nihar. Here is your good name. Christopher. Hello, dear Christopher. Here is your good name. Thank you so much for subscribing. Here is yours, dear. Hello, dear Tanjin. Here is your good name. Thank you so much for joining. Hi, dear Hassan. Here is your good name. Thank you so much for joining. Shehzad. Hi, Shehzad. Shehzad or Shehzad? Hi, welcome. Roxia. Hi, dear Roxia. Here is your good name. Guys, double tap on your screen. Please don't forget to press the subscribe button there. To see the magic. Anantita. Anindita. Hi, dear Anandita. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Evan. Here is a good name. Hi, Aisha. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining, dear Aisha. Here is a good name. Cherry on the top. Hi, dear Cherry. Welcome. Hello, dear Rita. Here is a good name. Thank you. Max. Hey, dear Max. Here is a good name. Stella. Hi, dear Stella. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Shanti. How are you? Here is a good name. Hello, dear Tayyab. Here is a good name. Thank you so much for subscribing, guys. Double tap on your screens. Otani. Hi, dear Otani. How are you? Here is a good name. Good. Ruby. Hi, dear Ruby. Here is a good name. Let's see who is next. Kareem. Hi, dear Kareem. Here is a good name. Oh, why not? What gives the time out to her? What? Don't know why. Let's see. Hi. Thank you so much, dear Emmanuel. Here is your good name, dear Emmanuel. Welcome. Don't forget to press the subscribe button, guys. Bhavika. Hello, dear Bhavika. Here is your good name. Hi, dear name. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Dana. Here is a good name. Love you, Sarah. Hi, dear Sarah. Welcome. Let's see who is next. John V. Hi, dear John V. That's a good name. Thanks, you're most welcome, dear. Don't forget to press the subscribe button, dear. Hello, Yusra. Hello, Yusra. Yusra. Oh God. My bad. Yusra. Hi, dear Yusra. Hello, dear Hafsa. Here is a big name. Oh, you're most welcome, dear. Thank you so much. Please don't use capital letters. Hi, Sia. How are you? Rajat. Hello, Rajat. Here is a good name. Let's see who is next. M-I-C-H. Hi, Mike. Welcome. Doris. Hi, dear Doris. Here is a good name. Don't forget to press the subscribe button. Kendra. Here is a good name, dear Kendra. Shanvi. Hi, dear Shanvi. Here is yours, Lela. Hi, dear Lela. Here is a good name, Hamza. Hi, dear Hamza. Here is your good name. Don't forget to press the subscribe button. Kate. Hi, dear Kate. Hello, dear Amy. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Saka. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Badri. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Kishan. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Neerav. Hi, dear Neerav. Here is your sorry. Good name, Priya. Hi, dear Priya. How are you? Umar. Hi, dear Umar. Here is your good name, Nilofer. Hi, dear Nilofer. Here is a good name. Don't forget to press the subscribe button. Hi, dear Grace. Here is a good name. Thank you so much. Hi, Aisha. Welcome. Hi, Master D. Yes, I remember you. Master D is back. How are you doing today? Master D. Welcome back. Hi, dear Asya. Here is yours. Guys, double tap on your screen. Come on. Do you like the live? Hi, dear Hannah. Hannah is my favorite name. Hannah. Here is yours, dear Hannah. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Guys, come on. Double tap on your screen. We have to complete 150 at least. Kruti. Hi, dear Kruti. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Dr. D, are you gone? Hey, dear Arya. Here is yours. Hello, dear Dr. D. No, Master D. What I am saying, oh God. Sally. Sally or Selena? Serena. Hi, dear Serena. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Kelly. Here is yours. Hello, dear Saksham. Sak. No, Saksham. Saksham. Hi, dear Saksham. Here is yours. Hello, dear Irfan. Here is your good name, Aisha. Hi, dear Aisha. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Sophie. Here is your good name, Aria. Hi, dear Aria. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Usher. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Pinky. Thank you so much for joining, guys. Double tap on your screen. We have to complete. Hi, Leonella. Welcome. 150. Leonella. Hi, dear Leonella. Welcome. What's the time? Okay. Kiara. Hi, dear Kiara. Hello, dear King. Thank you so much for joining. Hi, dear Condrel. Here is your good name. Free. What's your name? Hi, I am Frill. Hello, dear Frill. Here is your good name. Hi, Ishal. Here is your good name, dear. Thank you so much, dear. I really appreciate your love and support, dear Emmanuel. Hi, dear Vikas. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Dolly. Here is your good name. Manayam. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining, dear. Double tap on your screens. Hi, dear Tahira. Here is a good name. Don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. Double tap on your screens. Come on. Let me read the comment. Thank you for saying Kiara. Hi, I have missing you all. Let me read the comment of Master D. I have been missing you all day. It was just like sweet candy that melts in my heart. Oh God. Thank you. We love you. Love you too, dear. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your love and support, guys. Thank you, thank you. Hi, dear Varda. How are you? Here is yours. Hi, dear Zubia. Here is a good name. Hi, Phoebe. Welcome. Thank you so much, dear Kiara. Lots of love. Hi, dear Hanisha. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Yasmin. Here is your good name. Thank you so much. This is for you, dear Cassandra. Hi, dear Cassandra. Here is your good name. Thank you so much for joining. Hi, dear Valley. Here is your good name. Thank you so much. Thank you. Means a lot. Carajo or Caralo? Carajo. Let me check the spelling. Caralho. Caralho. Here is yours. Have a nice day to you too. Thank you, Nia. Hi, dear Nia. Here is yours. You're most welcome. Thank you so much. Hi, dear Ovi. Here is your good name. Thank you so much, dear. Have a lovely day to you too. Hey, dear Anna. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Nevra. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Sana. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Triti. Here is your good name. Oh my god, thank you so much. Hey, dear Albert. Thank you for all the love and support, guys. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Hi, dear Ibra. Here is a good name. Let's see who is next. Musa. Hi dear Musa. Here is a good name. Aleph. Let me check the spelling. Aleph. Yeah, Aleph. Hi dear Aleph. Welcome. Here is a good name. Thank you. Oh, Suzanne. You're most welcome, dear. Thank you so much for those kind words. Hi. Casey. Welcome. Hi, Abhishek. Here is your good name, Abhishek. Welcome. CED. Oh, thank you. I really appreciate. Thank you so much. Hi, Eliza. Welcome. Here is yours, Arya. Hi, dear Arya. Welcome. Come on, guys. We have to complete 160 at least. Hi, dear Hannah. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Sarah. Here is a good name. V. Hello, dear Bilal. Here is a good name. Thank you so much. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Incy. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Summer. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Diego. Here is a good name. Don't forget to press the subscribe button. Okay, let me write for you, dear Army. Okay, let's see who is next. Thank you so much, dear SL. Anabi. Hi, Anabi. ¿Cómo estás? Here is yours. Gracias. Hey, dear ASL. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Sabahuddin. What a beautiful name. Sabahuddin. Here is your good name. Okay, dear Incy. Hi, dear Incy. Here is your good name. Thank you so much. If you want a screenshot of your beautiful name, go for it now. Hi, dear Nafa. Okay. Don't forget to like and subscribe. What was the name? Hi, dear Avni. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Meher. Here is a good name. Hi, dear CHERR. Hi, welcome. Thank you, Thomas and Andrew. Why not, dear? Thomas and Andrew. Here is yours. Thank you so much, dear Maria. Don't be sad. Your name is next, dear Maria. Maria. Let's see who is next. Thank you. You're most welcome. Maria. Maria. Maria with YA or with A? With A, I think. Maria. Here is yours. Maya. Hi, Maya. Welcome, dear. Sanabel. Okay, dear Sanabel. Sanabel. Welcome. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining, guys. Don't forget to press the subscribe button. My name is Bree. Hi, dear Bree. B-R-I. Hi, dear Bree. Hello, dear Eardrum. Here is your good name. Bree is done? Oh god, I forgot. Okay, let's see who's next. Hi, dear Shiv. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Shania. Here is a good name, dear. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Ishal. Mahira. Hi, dear Mahira. Here is your beautiful name. Thank you so much for joining. And ignore the background noises. Let's see who's next. Sagrika or Sagarika? Let me check the spelling. Sagrika. What a unique name you have, dear Sagrika. Here is yours. Hi, dear Eva. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Khadija. Here is your good name. My favorite flower is rose, and it's my middle name. Oh wow, what's your name? Hello, dear Fino. Here is your good name. Hi, let's see. Oh, thank you so much. Abia. Hello, dear Abia. Here is your good name. My name is Ishar. All I can think about now is you. Don't do this, master. You did PhD in this. Hi, dear Ashley. Welcome. Hi, dear Manuela. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Lela. Here is your good name. Hi. Sorry, guys. Hi, dear Gizam. Here is your good name. Manayam. Yes, I remember you, dear. Thank you so much for joining again. Hi, dear Amna. Here is a good name. Let's see who's next. Sayara. Hi, dear Sayara. Here is a good name. Oh, it's prayer time. Hi, welcome back. Let's see who's next. Thank you so much for joining KNPEN. Hi, here is yours. Let's see. Viva or Vera? Let me check the spelling. Vera. Hi, dear Vera. Here is your good name. Thanks. Me, what's your name, dear? Hi, dear Asu. Welcome. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Harvey. Here is a good name. Thank you so much for subscribing, dear Miss Korean. You're almost done, dear. Hey, dear Elia. Here is a good name. Vaxi. Hi, dear Vaxi. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Amelia. Here is a good name. Don't forget to double tap on your screens, and there is a subscribe button waiting for your finger press. Anna Julia. Anna Julia. Hi. Welcome. Hi, dear Fazilat. Welcome back, dear. Here is a good name. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hi, dear Usman. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Manami. Here is a good name. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Please double tap on your screens and don't forget to press the subscribe button. Good man. Hi, dear good man. Here is a good name. Geeta. Hello, dear Geeta. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Eva. Here is a good name. Let's see who's next. Hi, dear Adel. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Aaron. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Red One. It is yours. Thank you so much for joining. For more, you have to complete 190. Double tap on your screen. Vishnu, ready. Hi, here is yours. Here is a good name. Thank you. Why sis? Hi, here is yours. Hello, dear Ayan. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Mukhtar. Mukhtar. Hi, here is your good name. Have to complete 190. Adulisa. Here is your good name. Thank you so much for joining. Hello, dear Asma. Here is your good name. Hi, hello, Anvisha, welcome. Hi, Usman. How are you? Thank you so much for joining. Hi, dear Junior. Here is a good name. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Don't forget to double tap on your screen. You have to complete 195. Help us to reach 95. Hi, Ali. Welcome. 195, I mean to say. Hey, dear Sahil. Here is a good name. Oh my god, Sahil with a lot of spam. Don't do this. Hi, Serene. Here is a great name. Hi, dear Asya. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Noor. Here is a good name. Hi, hee. Don't spam. Hey, dear Audrey. Here is a good name. Hi dear, are you? Here is your good name. Don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. Subhan is done. Subhan, your name is done, man. Please don't spam. Hey dear Ranky. Here is a good name. Malak. Hi dear Malak. Here is a good name. Hi dear Lena. Here is a good name. Hi dear Noor. Noor is done, I know. Noor is done. Hi. Thank you. You're most welcome, dear. Don't forget to press the subscribe button there. Let's see who is next. Safia. Hi, dear Safia. Here is a good name. Hi, dear. Mm, Oruk. Hi, Oruk. Here is your good name. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hi, dear Lakshmi. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Zoe. Here is a good name. You're most welcome, dear. Thank you. Hi, dear Mikey. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Bram. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Myra. Here is a good name. Hello, dear. I love it. Thank you. Glad you liked it. Mujtaba. Hi, dear Mujtaba. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Kilia. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Pragati. Here is a good name. Thank you so much for joining. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hi, dear Joris. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Ikra. It is a good name. Hi, Swapnanji. How are you? Welcome back. It is yours. Hi, dear Molina. Here is a good name. Hi, dear G-O. Let me check the spelling. Govou. Here is yours. Hi, Naomi. Hello, dear Naomi. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Abby. Here is your good name. Thank you so much. Hi, dear Wajiha. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Deepa. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Sally. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Riley. Here is your good name. Master D, is that you? I knew it. Okay, let's see who is next. Ifa. Hi, dear Ifa. Here is a good name. Thank you so much, dear. Kia is done. But if you want a screenshot of your beautiful name, Keely or Kelia? Oh, God. Let me check the spelling. It is yours. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Don't forget to press the subscribe button, double tap on your screens. Let's see who is next. Dear Mikhail. Hi, Mikhail. Welcome. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Maya. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Bella. Here is a good name. Thank you so much. Zara, don't use too much emojis, dear. You can simply say Zahra instead of using too much emojis. Like this. Here is yours. It is a good name. Hi, dear Batna. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Mindy. Here is a good name. Don't forget to like and subscribe. FA Saren. Hello, dear FA. Here is a good name. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hello, dear Truva. Here is a good name. Forget. Don't forget. Don't forget what I am saying. Don't forget to press the subscribe button, guys. Jania, hi dear Jania. Here is a good name. Hi dear Suleika. Here is a good name. Thank you so much for subscribing, everyone. Yay! Here is yours. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's see who is next. Maylin. Hi, dear Maylin. Here is a good name. Sarah. Hello, dear Sarah. Here is your good name. Thank you for joining. Hi, dear Elena. Here is your good name. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let me check the spelling, which is M N X A N and then M. Hi, here is yours. Hi, dear Anais. Here is your good name. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Hi, dear Kashif. Here is your good name. Hello, someone is saying Motu. Hi, dear Motu. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Noah. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Stiff. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Noordan. Here is a good name. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's see who's next. Noordan. Hi, dear Noordan. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Azra. 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 Yeah, Azra. Oh, let me rewrite. Azra. Hi, dear Azra. Welcome. Ma'am, I am here now. Thank you. Hi, dear Lena. Here is your good name. Yasin? Yasin? Let me check. Yasin. Yeah. Yassine. Hi, dear. Yasin. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Leah. Here is a good name. Yes, Amul Bhai. Hi dear Janai, here is a good name. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hi dear Leah, here is a good name. Thank you. नहीं अमल भाई, no. Hi dear Okchar, here is a good name. Janai is so good to know. Hi Deepika, welcome. Here is a good name. Mihael. Hi, dear Mihail. Mihail. It is a good name. Thank you so much for joining after this live, man. Hi, dear Kinan. Here is a good name. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Don't forget to press the subscribe button. Thank you. Biam. Hi, dear Biam. Welcome. And now we are going to end this stream. So let's try it last name for the streams. Mom. Let's try it. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms. Okay, thank you so much, guys. Oh yeah, mom. I am right. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining, and that's it for this live. Dad, how can we forget Dad? Thank you so much for joining, guys, and now we are going to end the stream. Thank you so much for your precious time, everyone. And see you tomorrow. Bye bye. Take care. Love you all. Bye. Thank you so much for your dad is watching. Say hi to your dad. And good day. Bye. Good night.